Back to the story we've been following from the beginning. The Methodist pastor punished for presiding over his son's same-sex wedding is now defying a church order to give up his credentials and is instead vowing to push the church toward equality.
I have wrestled with this long and hard after many conversations, prayers, and thoughts. I cannot voluntarily surrender my credentials because I am a voice now for tens of thousands of LGBT members in our church. I also...
Reverend Frank Schaefer made that announcement this morning after being ordered to surrender his religious credentials by Thursday if he could not adhere to church doctrine. The order was part of the United Methodist Church's punishment, which included a 30-day suspension for leading his son's wedding back in 2007. His decision leaves his fate now up to the church, and Reverend Schaefer joins me now live. It's a great pleasure to have you on again today.
Thank you for having me back.
Well, we spoke right before your 30-day suspension, and I've got to start with how you dealt with these 30 days and coming to the decision you made today. What was that like for you?
It was actually a period of soul searching. Mainly, I had to find out what really was in my heart and what I needed to say. And so I came to the conclusion that that's what I have to say. You know, I have to give them my honest opinion and based on my conscience, and that's what I did this morning.
When people say you were at a crossroads between the love of your son, your child, and the love you have for your church, is that a fair way to describe what you've been dealing with, what's been pulling at your heart and your moral fiber?
That's a fair way to describe that, even though I have, I think, evolved from that point now to becoming a more outspoken advocate for all our LGBT folks within the church. And part of the problem is that the church is not really recognizing that there are thousands upon thousands of LGBT folks and their families and their supporters in our church. And I've become a voice for them. So it's a much bigger picture now for me.
Your decision to defy the church, was there ever a moment in these past 30 days where you, as you reflected and as you pointed out, meditated and focused on this, that you thought about going along with the church's demands?
Actually, yes. I debated back and forth with my legal team and with many friends. I had many conversations, and people were saying, well, why don't you just say yes, with God's help, I can uphold these laws, and then have your own interpretation of that. And I said, you know, finally said to myself, you know, I have to be honest and I have to speak what's on my heart, and I just cannot live with that answer. So I had to just say, no, I'm sorry, I cannot uphold the discipline because it has these discriminatory laws in them.
You were ordered to then give up your credentials. You are not doing that. Why do you want to hold on to those credentials when it appears that the church will strip them from you?
I'm making a point here by saying, look, I am part of the church. I'm an ordained minister, and I am a representative of those LGBT members that are there and that are hurting, and I'm standing with them and for them, and I'm not going away. I would feel like I would abandon them now.
Take me to the moment you told your son that you would defy the church's orders and that you would not give up your credentials, and in fact that you would be willing to officiate another same-sex wedding. What was that moment like as a father to his son?
You mean when my son Tim learned about it?
When your son learned your final decision that you would announce today.
Okay, he said to me, that is so you, Dad, and I'm so proud of you.
Oh, Dad's son, keeping it simple, and the words that mean so much to every parent, I think, is to hear your child say that they are proud of you. Well, thank you so much. I know this is to be continued, and it now rests in the hands of the church and their decision on what they plan to do next. But it is a great pleasure having you on again and having you explain your decision that certainly you did not take lightly, and you do not. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Still ahead, the Mega Millions jackpot now over $500 million.